the man who survived 2 atomic bombs. Imagine surviving the deadliest weapon ever used in war. Now imagine surviving it twice. It sounds impossible. The odds are so small that most people would never believe it could happen. But in August of 1945, one man experienced the unimaginable. His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi. On August 6th, he stood just a few kilometers from the first atomic bomb ever used in warfare. The explosion destroyed Hiroshima in seconds. Tens of thousands of people died instantly. The city vanished beneath a cloud of fire and smoke. Against all odds, Yamaguchi survived, burned, injured, traumatized, but alive. Most people would consider that a miracle. Yet what happened next was even more unbelievable. 3 days later, after escaping Hiroshima and returning home to Nagasaki, Yamaguchi found himself beneath a second atomic explosion. Another flash, another shockwave, another city consumed by nuclear fire. And somehow, he survived again. Today, his story remains one of the most extraordinary survival stories in human history. A story of luck, a story of tragedy, and a story that forces us to confront the devastating power of nuclear weapons. This is the incredible story of the man who survived 2 atomic bombs in 1945. By the summer of 1945, World War II had entered its final chapter. Across Europe, the fighting had largely ended. Germany had surrendered. But in the Pacific, the war continued. Japan faced constant air raids. Entire cities had already been reduced to rubble. Millions of civilians lived with uncertainty. Food was scarce, resources were running out, and every day brought new fears about what might happen next. Among those civilians was a young engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi. At 29 years old, he worked for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. He was not a soldier. He was not a politician. He was simply an ordinary man trying to provide for his family. In early August, Yamaguchi traveled to Hiroshima on a business assignment. It was supposed to be a short trip, a routine journey, nothing more. He planned to finish his work and return home to his wife and infant son. But history had other plans. On the morning of August 6, 1945, everything changed. At 8:15 in the morning, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was preparing to leave Hiroshima. His business trip was over. He was just moments away from returning home. Then he looked up. A single American B-29 bomber flew high above the city. Seconds later, a blinding flash filled the sky. The light was brighter than anything he had ever seen. In an instant, the world around him disappeared. The bomb known as Little Boy exploded nearly 600 meters above Hiroshima. The temperature at the center of the blast reached levels hotter than the surface of the sun. Buildings vanished. Streets erupted into chaos. Thousands of people were killed instantly. Yamaguchi was thrown violently through the air. The explosion ruptured his eardrums. His face and arms were badly burned. For a moment, he believed he was dead. When he regained consciousness, the city around him had become a nightmare. Smoke covered the horizon. Fires spread in every direction. People wandered through the ruins, injured and confused. Many searched desperately for loved ones. Others simply stared in shock. No one truly understood what had happened. Humanity had entered the atomic age, and Hiroshima had become its first victim. After the explosion, Tsutomu Yamaguchi struggled to understand what had happened. His body was covered with burns. His hearing was damaged. Every movement caused pain. Yet somehow, he was alive. Around him, Hiroshima was unrecognizable. Buildings had collapsed. Roads had disappeared beneath debris. Fires consumed entire neighborhoods. The city had become a landscape of destruction. Yamaguchi spent the day searching for shelter and other survivors. Like everyone else, he had no idea that a new weapon had been used. There was only confusion, only fear, and the overwhelming struggle to stay alive. The next morning, despite his injuries, he made an incredible decision. He would return home. Slowly and painfully, he reached the train station. Against all odds, some railway lines were still operating. Yamaguchi boarded a train and began the journey back to Nagasaki. He carried burns across his body. He carried memories that would never leave him, and he carried a story that almost nobody would believe. On August 9, 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi arrived home in Nagasaki. He was exhausted, burned, and deeply traumatized. That morning, he reported to work and began describing the destruction he had witnessed in Hiroshima. His colleagues struggled to believe him. A single bomb destroying an entire city seemed impossible. As Yamaguchi spoke, the meeting was suddenly interrupted. A bright flash appeared outside. Once again, the sky exploded with light. The second atomic bomb, known as Fat Man, had detonated over Nagasaki. Yamaguchi threw himself to the ground. The blast wave tore through the city. Windows shattered. Buildings collapsed. People screamed in terror. For the second time in 3 days, he found himself at the center of an atomic explosion. The odds were almost impossible to comprehend. Yet somehow, he survived again. Many around him did not. Nagasaki joined Hiroshima as another city forever changed by nuclear warfare. Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. World War II was over. But for Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the struggle continued. His injuries took months to heal. The burns left permanent scars. The memories remained even longer. For years, he rarely spoke about what he had experienced. He focused on rebuilding his life and supporting his family. Yet the events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki never left him. As the decades passed, Yamaguchi became increasingly concerned about nuclear weapons. He believed that no one should ever experience what he had endured. Eventually, he decided to share his story publicly. He spoke at conferences, he gave interviews, and he urged world leaders to work toward a future without nuclear war. His testimony offered a rare perspective. Not only had he survived one atomic bombing, he had survived 2. His life became a symbol of both human resilience and the devastating consequences of nuclear weapons. Tsutomu Yamaguchi lived for more than 6 decades after the war. He watched the world change. He watched nations build powerful new weapons. And he watched generations grow up without experiencing the horrors he had witnessed. In 2009, the Japanese government officially recognized him as a survivor of both atomic bombings. He remains the only person to receive that recognition officially. His story is not just about survival. It is a reminder of the destructive power humanity possesses, but it is also a reminder of resilience, of endurance, of the determination to continue living even after unimaginable tragedy. Tsutomu Yamaguchi passed away in 2010 at the age of 93, yet his story continues to inspire people around the world. A man who survived 2 atomic bombs, a witness to one of the darkest moments in human history, and a voice that warned future generations never to repeat the same mistake.